What's up, guys? Blake Calhoun here, and another episode of Almost Professional, the podcast where I talk about mobile filmmaking, DIY filmmaking, really all things filmmaking. And today I want to ask you a question, and this is specifically really for the iPhone 11 Pro users, or really iPhone 11, I guess. Has the novelty of the ultra-wide lens worn off yet? Let's talk about it. I'll say right up front, for me, the answer is no. I am really enjoying the ultra-wide lens more than I ever thought I would, to be honest. Surprisingly so. But especially with photography, more so than video. Video, it's super cool. I'm really liking that look. But for photography in particular, I'm really enjoying shooting with the ultra-wide. But I'm also a little bit tired of seeing all these ultra-wide photos. But that is what happens, of course, when something new comes along and it gives access to people that haven't had access to that kind of lens before, and especially on a phone. Yeah, you could have used a Moment lens, especially the Moment Superfish, although that is a distorted lens, and the ultra-wide, while distorted, it's not quite as distorted as a fisheye lens. Or you could use traditional wide lenses from Moment or Siru or Sandmark, and those look good, but they're not built into your phone and they're not as easy to use, and I think that's the key. Ease of use mixed with a pretty high quality image. Again, video and photo, but in particular photo, for me right now anyway. I am planning to do a short film, a short travel style film, only shooting on my iPhone with the ultra-wide lens, using only the tools in the iPhone, just as an experiment. I'm actually heading to Austin, Texas, and I'm hoping I have time while I'm down there to shoot a little short film based around this idea. I really just want to overdo the ultra-wide lens use as much as I can. That's a joke, but I do see ultra-wide lens and iPhone 11 all over YouTube. And again, that's kind of par for the course whenever something new comes out. But the question is, I guess, is it a novelty or is it something that will hang around, that people will consistently use? My initial feeling right now is that it will stick around. I see a lot of great content creators like Patrick Tomaso, Richard Lackey, Tyler Stallman. I see their work posted on Twitter quite a bit and YouTube, and they're implementing the ultra-wide lens in a lot of creative ways. So I don't think it's going to be a fad. It's not going to be like the Face app or whatever that was where you could turn yourself old. That lasted about 3 days. This has a lot of practical use, and especially for filmmakers, but just your average Joe consumer too. Now, will they use it properly? That's a whole nother story. I've seen a lot of really crappy wide shots, and that's to be expected. And that's not really a criticism. It's just that, again, when something new comes along to the masses, then it gets overused. And a lot of times, especially with technology, it doesn't get used really in the best way. But for the most part, on the pro level side, filmmaking and photo, I'm seeing a lot of great work. The one thing that I am a little bit tired of hearing, though, and that is that you don't need a gimbal or other lenses now that the iPhone has this ultra-wide lens. Let me tell you why I think that is false. And keep in mind, I am looking at this from a filmmaking perspective. Not just, again, Joe consumer who is shooting fun videos of their family or what have you. For filmmaking, first and foremost, I'm not going to do every shot on the ultra-wide lens. So yeah, the stabilization, especially in the native app, is pretty impressive. I did a video on my YouTube channel comparing all these gimbals with the iPhone 11, and I used Filmic Pro. I didn't use the native camera app, and the stabilization is very similar. It's very similar, in fact. But the native iPhone stabilization, I think they call it cinematic stabilization or something like that. This is the electronic image stabilization, part of the ultra-wide lens. This is not OIS. OIS is not included in this lens, and for filmmaking, that is ideal. That's great. You don't get the jittery jello stuff that you get with the other lenses. But for shots longer than maybe 5 or 6 feet, I still think you need a gimbal. And I feel like I proved that in my video. For quick shots, pushing into a product or to someone's face, or, like part of a highlight video you might do for an event or some sort of travel film, you can get away without having a gimbal. But if you do any kind of long walk and talk, almost Steadicam style stuff, no, not at all. And then of course, as I said, for shooting any kind of video project, you're not going to use the ultra-wide lens exclusively. And so then of course, using the wide or the tele, or using a third-party lens, a gimbal's a good idea. Again, depending on your project, depending on what you're doing. But a lot of these people are acting as if the ultra-wide lens is all they're ever going to use again, and I just don't understand it. It's really more of a stylized look, a stylized lens. It is not something you would use on a narrative film unless you're Terry Gilliam, unless you're making a stylized film like that. Or again, a video, a travel film, you might be able to get away with using all ultra-wide. Maybe in a music video. I mean, there are obviously examples where that could work. But for most things, most projects, you vary the lens, you vary the focal length. You use the lens that best helps tell your story. And for me, unless you're doing a comedy, that's not the ultra-wide lens. And so the other piece to this is using third-party lenses. You'll hear people say, you don't need a wide-angle lens anymore. You don't need any lenses anymore for your phone. And from my perspective, that is false. That is not true. Do you need third-party lenses? No. But you don't really need any of this stuff. But they make your life a lot easier, and again, they can help tell your story in a better way. For one, the ultra-wide might be too wide. It might be too comical looking. Again, depending on what your project is. So using a Moment 18mm or a Sandmark 18mm attached to the native wide lens, that could be a great option. Or of course, using a lens like an anamorphic. Doesn't work on the ultra-wide, which you wouldn't want that on there anyway, but it works great on the tele or the standard wide. So for narrative filmmaking style projects, music videos, commercials, short films, what have you, that is obviously a go-to great option. But also even using the tele lens, and I think the tele lens is really probably the most underused lens there is, and I'm talking about third party. You attach that to the wide, and you've got a wider aperture. So you've got a 2x telephoto with an f1.8. And so what does that do? Well, it gives you the ability to get shallow depth of field a lot easier. Or you attach it to the native tele lens, and you've got a 4x tele, and with the iPhone 11, it's an f2 lens. So then you have approximately 114mm lens, f2.0. That's pretty cool. Again, you can start getting more traditional looking shots. When I say traditional, I mean like a mirrorless or a DSLR camera, but on your smartphone. And we're not talking about using portrait mode with the simulated bokeh. We're talking about getting shallow depth of field, getting bokeh in combination with the native lenses and third-party lenses. Those are just a few examples off the top of my head. There are a lot of other reasons to continue to use third-party lenses. And by the way, before you think I'm sponsored by Moment or Siru or Sandmark or any one of these guys, I'm not. I've actually never done a sponsored video, by the way. Not that I wouldn't do one, I've just never done one. Everything I do is based on my own testing and research. Now, some companies send me free products, although none of those guys have. Actually, Sandmark sent me some ND filters. I take that back. But again, so the point is, I'm not sponsored or paid to say this. This is my own. These are my own thoughts about the subject, and I really believe that. The final thing regarding the ultra-wide lens is it is an f2.4, and I just did a video on YouTube testing out the native camera app versus Filmic Pro, and I found that the ultra-wide lens shooting the exact same scene was definitely noisier than the native wide or the native tele. This is shooting the exact same scene in the exact same light. Now, f2.4 doesn't sound like a big difference compared to f1.8 or f2.0, but the way it handles video noise, it really seems to be. The one caveat I will throw out here is I shot this before the recent iOS 13.2 update, and I'm told by many people that that update did help reduce video noise in third-party apps. And so I need to do more testing. But even so, regardless of that, the two other lenses are going to be not only better in low light, but they're going to be sharper as well, if that kind of thing matters to you. Now, don't get me wrong though. I actually really like, I would almost say love, this ultra-wide lens. It is great to have that. It's really empowering, I guess is a way to say that, to have all those focal lengths in one device in the palm of your hand. Ultra-wide, wide, and tele. Not to mention the selfie cameras now are good too. So if you're vlogging or doing news and that kind of thing and you need to shoot a shot of yourself easily, that lens works great. Or you could flip around and use the ultra wide without a monitor now because it's shooting such a wide shot, you'll more than likely be framed up just fine. So the ultra wide camera and lens on the new iPhone 11 is great. I really like it and I've been using it a lot and I think I'll continue to use it. I don't think it is a novelty. Although it's being way overused right now, I think like anything, that'll calm down and people will hopefully start to use it just in the right situation when they really need that kind of shot versus everything they're shooting right now. But I absolutely do still think filmmakers in particular need a gimbal, and third-party lenses are still a great option. Just a quick note to say that my new courses have been doing well. I appreciate everyone who has purchased those. That's one way that I get support for what I do. I mentioned earlier, I don't have any sponsors on my channel. I make a little bit of money on YouTube ad revenue, but otherwise, it's just me putting in all the effort to make all these videos and this podcast. And so people that buy my courses really do help keep this stuff going. I am a full-time filmmaker. I make my living as a filmmaker. I do commercials and movies and some corporate work and advertising type work. Truth be told, it would be great to just do YouTube. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I am trying to push more in that direction. I've said ever since I've done this channel that my model is almost like the Film Riot model. I really like what Ryan Conley and his crew does. Basically, they create content and then share how they did it as they work on their own projects. And that's kind of what I've been doing. Pretty much all the testing and comparisons and experimental stuff I do on my channel, I want to know about that stuff too. I'm not trying to play to the YouTube algorithm, especially on videos about dynamic range. I'm not sure that's a hot search topic on YouTube. And my courses do that too. I'm creating content around stuff I like, and then I'm sharing my knowledge with other people. And I hope that you guys find that stuff helpful. My new course is Smartphone Cinematography 101. It's all about smartphone video and cinematography and mobile filmmaking. And then of course I have the Complete Guide to Filmic Pro. And my other course is called Make a Movie Today. And it's all about my experimental short films I did where I made 20 short films in 20 days. Links for all these are in the description and available on my website at ifilmmakers.tv. So do you guys have an iPhone 11? Are you enjoying the ultra-wide lens? Hit me up on Twitter and let me know. I'm on Twitter all the time. This has been another episode of Almost Professional. I'm Blake Calhoun, your host. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.